So good morning,
Hi,
and can you tell us who you are?
I'm David Friend. I'm the chairman and CEO and co-founder of Carbonite.
Thank you, David. And David, many small businesses are backing up their data. Of course, they could be doing it better, however. Can you help us understand what are some of the challenges that many small business owners face when backing up their data, and as I said, how they could do it better?
Right. Well, there's two things about backup. You need to do it frequently, and you need to get your data off-site. And small businesses generally don't have, if they're too small to have an IT guy, it's a lot of trouble to do a backup. And sometimes people will back up their servers, but they won't back up all the PCs around the office. And we get calls from people frequently who say, gee, my PC died, and I thought everything on my PC was being backed up to the server, but I discovered it's not. And now I've lost my spreadsheets, and I've lost my word processing documents, and a lot of other things. Because the only thing that typically gets saved on the server is the email. So that's a problem. And then getting it off-site. Some companies maybe back up once a month, which is not nearly often enough. And then they leave the backup sitting right there in the office. And if the building burns down, or you have a flood, or somebody breaks in and steals everything, you're out of business. And when there's a catastrophic data loss, the chances of it putting you out of business is pretty high.
I don't know if you can be objective about this question, but can we talk a little about a tape backup, CD backup, DVD backup? One, is that still in the marketplace? People still do that? And second of all, if they do, I guess, how do they do the issue of taking it off site?
Yeah, I mean, we talk to small businesses all the time, and it's not uncommon to see people backing up their server to a tape, and then they take the tape home with them, or they give the tape to one of the employees to take home, or something like that. But the big problem is they don't do it frequently enough, and that's not exactly, when you think that you're really putting your whole business at risk with a tape that's sitting in some employee's closet
Or down the
at
block.
home. And there's just a lot of horror stories about people, either they thought the backup was working, but they didn't test the backup to see if it actually was working, and they've been running these tapes off every day for months, and then when they finally do have a disaster, they find out that they weren't working properly, and then by that time it's too late. So backup is a pain in the neck. Most people don't like to do backups. It takes time. You have to be careful about it. Frequently you don't really get everything backed up that you think you're backing up. And that's why we think Carbonite online backup is a much better solution. It's automatic, it backs up everything automatically, and it gets the data off-site and stored in a professionally managed data center.
David, there's a number of vendors that do online backup. Maybe there's a top 5 to 10. You know the numbers better than I do, but there's several that do online backup. Can you talk a little bit about Carbonite and what differentiates it? If there is a differentiation in the marketplace, why should people consider Carbonite? There's a fee. Some people are not charging for it. Can you talk a bit about that?
Right. Well, there were online backup vendors in the business space for many years before Carbonite came around, probably close to 10 years. We started Carbonite because we felt that those products were too expensive and too complicated for a small business. They may be okay for a Citibank to use, but they're really beyond the means of a small business, and way too complicated. So our objective in going into the market was to make online backup simple and accessible, so that every small business owner could take advantage of this kind of technology that's already being used in much bigger companies. So that was our objective, simple and inexpensive.
And when they're looking to purchase a solution, what should they look for their business? Are there any benchmarks they can say, you know what, I should pick this vendor because of this or because of that? And while you're thinking of that, answer, how does it affect how much data they have? If somebody has 50 gigabytes or a terabyte versus 10 gigabytes, does that have a play at all on how they do it, or it doesn't really?
Well, most businesses actually have less data than the typical consumer. If you're taking this video home and going to load it onto your PC, you're probably going to generate more data with that one video than a typical business would generate in a month. So, as you know, Carbonite really got started in the consumer and prosumer market and is moving more into the business market. So we're used to backing up large amounts of data. very inexpensively. And then what we find is as we go into the business market, the data becomes more valuable and smaller in size. So it's actually a very nice market for online.
It's a perfect storm.
That's right.
Okay.
So what was the other question?
Yeah, no, I was just asking about when they're looking for solutions, how can they decide what picks? And you answered it a bit briefly talking about Carbonite, but just recap that.
Right.
You know, I'm looking for solutions. I've narrowed it down to my 3. You know, what tips the hand that I should pick Carbonite? I guess that's, you know, your perspective of it.
Well, first of all, you want a product that's easy enough to use. So you should. Most companies have free trials.
Right.
You should actually try the product and see how long it takes you to install it, see how long it takes you to figure out what's backed up and what's not backed up, and so forth. Second thing is price. You know, if assuming all your vendors have very reliable back-end storage systems, price would be an issue. But the third thing is you want to make sure your vendor's going to be there 3 years from now when you need to get that data back. And there have just been a lot of companies that have started, discovered that this business is a lot harder than they thought it was, and exited, including some big companies like HP's Upline division and AOL's X-Drive and a number of others that have folded up because they discovered that technology is a lot harder than people think. You know, it's real easy to back up your own PC to an external hard drive or something like that, but Carbonite has 30 billion files backed up today. We get over 100 million new files every day. Data comes pouring into our data center at a rate of almost 8 gigabits per second, 24 hours a day. And to be able to take all that data in and store it so that it's absolutely going to be there 3 years from now when you need it is very complex technology.
So the data's not going into an external drive on David's small computer in his home somewhere.
So we in fact use what's called a RAID 6 array, which takes your data and spreads it out over 15 different disk drives. And we would have to lose 3 of those 15 drives simultaneously before losing any data. And the chances of that are about 36 million times more safe than the hard drive on your computer. So when you back up to Carbonite, you could probably lose a half dozen hard drives in your lifetime, and the chances of losing backup with Carbonite is next to nil.
Gotcha. David, thank you very much for being with us.
Pleasure.